Oh, hello everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Ghost Stories on a Sunday as nature intended. Here we are in the library, he said grandly. We've got the fire on tonight. It's a little bit, well, we haven't got the fire on. It's not that chilly. It's been quite warm today, actually. Down on the floor there, I don't know if you can see him. There he is, his derpy lurpiness. You're on camera, derp. Yeah, all right, okay. It's glaring at me. It's a cat. So, what are we reading tonight? We are still reading the excellent Ghosts and Legends of Lincolnshire and the Fen Country. Oh. What are we drinking tonight? Well, two beer strategy tonight. We've got the Averbode Abbey Abbey. Oh, right, it's an Abbey beer tonight. So this is Abbey Extra. Just saying, Belgian blonde beer imported by Beer 52, brewed and canned in Belgium in collaboration with Aberbode Abbey in same working, that's Belgium, produced by, can't pronounce that, Breweridge, Hugh, whatever. Ingredients: water, barley, malt, corn, oats, spelt, hops, yeast, allergens, including gluten, shown in bold. So it's 4.8%. So there we go. It's, I don't know if you can see that. It's an Abbey beer. So we got two tonight. That's coincidental. So we just open this one up. Oops, a daisy, and it's already spilling out over the floor there. It's been a weird day today. It's been a little bit, it's been sunny, hasn't it, Derps? Because you've been outside for most of the day, but then the sun goes in and it suddenly gets a bit chilly. Didn't get any of the gardening work I was hoping to do today because I was too busy faffing around with StreamYard, trying to get StreamYard controlled from my iPhone. But anyway, what are we washing it down with? Well, I was going to go down to Waitrose, was going to go down to Lidl this afternoon to get another bottle of the Western Gold Honey. But I was too busy faffing around trying to get StreamYard to talk to my iPhone. Ran out of time. Then I had a conversation with my friend Drew and then ran out of time. So we are going to break into the Arbracken tonight. So you ready for this? Look, it's absolutely fresh bottle. Here we go. Oh, that's magnificent stuff, that is. So, I think we'll top up the beer and then we'll have our dead soldier. First dead soldier of the night. There we go. Uh-oh, dead soldier and Run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Indeed. Grimsby. Havelock the Dane. Although there are many versions of the following legend, they all agree that Grim founded the town of Grimsby and that Havelock granted it many immunities when he became king. Over 1,000 years ago, when the popular English king Athelwold was on the point of death, he appointed Earl Godrich of Cornwall as his regent and guardian of his infant child, Goldborough, who was to inherit the throne when she was 21 years old and be married to the best and strongest man alive. You're too kind. The Earl affirmed all this on the Bible and after the king's death claimed the whole of England. Goldborough grew into a beautiful, gentle young woman, but Godrich was jealous of her and sent her to Dover, where she was kept in poverty and isolation. Obviously, a reform council. At the time of Athelwold's death, the good king, Berk Aben of Denmark, was also dying. He arranged for his friend Karl Goddard to be his regent and guardian of his two daughters and one son named Havelock, who was to inherit the throne when he reached the age of majority. Goddard swore his loyalty on the Bible But when the king died, took the boy and his sister Swambra and Goddard swore his loyalty on the Bible. But when the king died, took the boy and his sisters Swambra and Helfled and imprisoned them in a castle. The children were kept hungry, and eventually he took the two girls and slit their throats. Havelock was to be thrown into the sea, and Grim the fisherman was to do the deed Grim the fisherman was to do the deed that night in return for great riches and freedom from slavery. Goddard would accept the blame. Unaware of his true identity, Grim bound and gagged the boy, but on the point of drowning, saw a shining light around the child and a ray like a sunbeam which came from his mouth. He untied his bonds and discovered a bright king mark on his right shoulder. He knew his prisoner was the Danish heir and fell at his feet. Havelock forgave him in return for his life. The following morning he went to Goddard, claiming the deed had been done and demanding his freedom. The villain denied all knowledge of the bargain and threatened the fisherman with death. The frightened man took Havelock, his wife, and 3 sons to his boat and sailed from Denmark, but a strong wind blew them north. The frightened man took Havelock, his wife, and 3 sons to his boat and sailed from Denmark, but a strong wind blew from the north, driving them to England. They landed in the Humber at the northern end of Lindsey, where they built a house of earth, and because Grim owned the place, it was named Grimsby. He was a skilled fisherman, and he, his sons, and Havelock worked hard, but in their time their fortunes changed, and they were starving. Grim begged the Dane to go to Lincoln, where he could find a little food for himself, and made a cloak from his sail to keep the boy dry. Half naked and without shoes, Havelock walked to Lincoln and took work as a scullion. The boy grew into a tall, strong young man and looked every part a king. At the time, Earl Godrich held a parliament at Lincoln, and the occasion was celebrated by a games tournament. At that time, Earl Godrich held a parliament at Lincoln, and the occasion was celebrated by a games tournament of which Havelock became the champion. All the knights at the castle spoke of the scullion's great strength and good looks, which made Godrich remember his promise to marry Athelwold's daughter to the fairest and strongest man. He decided that the kitchen hand should have the Princess Goldborough and ordered her to be brought to Lincoln. She announced that she would marry none other than a king, and Havelock refused marriage. But Godrich threatened them with torture and death, and so the two were wed, neither divulging their true identity. Should be identities, but there we go. Having nowhere to live, they set out for Grimsby, where they learned that Grim was dead. But now his prosperous sons offered them to share their home. That night, when light from Havelock's mouth and a cross of red gold on his that night when she lay beside her husband, Goldborough saw a shining light from Havelock's mouth and a cross of red gold on his shoulder. Then an angel told her that the cross was a token that Havelock was the heir of a king and would rule all Denmark and England, and she would be queen. The next morning, Havelock related strange dreams. He sat on a high hill in Denmark, and as he sat there, he began to own the whole country, and he held that country in his arms, and its people loved him. Then he had another dream. He flew over the sea and came to England and held it in his hand and gave it to Goldborough. In time, with the help of Grim's 3 brave sons, the Earl Godrich and Carl Goddard were In time, with the help of Grim's 3 brave sons, the Earl Godrich and Carl Goddard were punished and Havelock and Goldborough ruled both countries with justice and kindness for 60 years and had 15 children. I think we know what they got up to at their spare time. Right, beer time, Derps, I think. He's sat down there by the fire. Do you know what, Derp? We are going to turn the fire on. Yeah, there we go. In the magnificent Rush beer glass. Again, thank you, viewers Kirsten and Steve. Cheers, me beers. That's very nice. Is it Holbeach or Holbeck? I think we'll go with Holbeck. The Holbeck Gamesters. For many years during the 17th century, Abraham Tejedine, Mr. Slater, Dr. Jonathan Watson, and Farmer Guymer, who were the town's notorious young gamesters, met at the Chequers Inn, where they gambled and drank until the farmer's death spoilt things. They were at their favourite inn, which still stands in the centre of the town, on the eve of the burial, lamenting the passing of their good times, for no one could replace that sporting farmer. The men became more and more maudlin until Abraham Tejedine suggested that they should go over to the church and keep their dead friend company. With true drunkard's courage, they pocketed their cards, ordered more beer and a lamp, and staggered over the road to All Saints' Church. They opened the door with difficulty and slewed their way up the aisle to the altar steps, where they offered their silent friend several toasts. Time dragged as they kept watch in the cold church until Tejedine suggested a game of cards, and they used the coffin lid for a table. The cards were dealt, but of course they were a man short. It was Tejedine's suggestion that the corpse would make an excellent dummy, and so the lid was prized open and Guymer pulled out and propped up alongside his old friends. They took turns to play the dummy's card, and the beer flowed. The corpse was congratulated for playing so well, indeed much better than when alive and kicking at the Chequers. I think we'll try it again. The corpse was congratulated for playing so well, indeed much better than when alive and kicking at the Chequers. Suddenly, the dead man turned his head and, leering at the gamesters, summoned three demons to spirit away forever the now screaming Slater, Watson, and Tejedine. At sunrise, the townspeople who had heard the rumpus in the night now dared to enter the church, where they discovered the upturned coffin and a deck of cards scattered on the floor. Seated against the altar rails was the body of Farmer Guymer, with a smug, self-satisfied look on his putty-coloured face. It is said that for many years thereafter, four men could be plainly seen standing by the church, beckoning all drunkards to their fate. Oh, Derpy. We're a bit tired tonight. It's been a long day. Slange me, everybody. I think we'll turn the blur down a bit, actually. Let's go to visual effects, blur intensity. I think we'll take it down to, no, it's a bit too much. 26%, that's better. Oh, bump time, slange me bump. Oh, our Bracken, how we've missed you. Holy well, the ghost of the Ferry Boat Inn. The inn is best approached from Church Street and past St. John the Baptist Church, with its holy well, which is dressed during the annual church festival held in June. Each year on the 17th of March, the village, which lies southeast of Huntingdon and next to the river Great Ouse, is invaded by crowds of people making their way to the Ferry Boat Inn. They jostle together in the bar at midnight in the hope of seeing the spectre of Juliet Tuesley arise from her grave set in the floor of the bar. She is said to have been spurned by Thomas Zool, the woodcutter, and hanged herself from a tree by the river on the 17th of March, 1050. Juliet fell in love as he passed her one early spring morning when she was picking flowers in the wood. Zool did not notice her then or when she hid behind a tree each day to watch him stride out for work. Finally, this shy girl had to declare her love and offered him flowers, which he threw to the ground. She lay on the ground and wept beside the scattered blooms until nightfall, when she took a length of rope from a farmer's barn and hanged herself from a tree. The authorities ruled that Juliet should be interred at the crossroads, being the usual place for those who committed suicide. 18 years later, the Ferry Boat Inn was built close to her grave, which was marked with a single stone slab. In time, the inn was extended and Juliet's stone was left to form part of the floor, where it remains uncarpeted and out of which Juliet has allegedly been seen to arise on the anniversary of her death. Oh, it's another long one, Derps. It's another long one, and it is 21:46, and we as Gert's starving hungry. So cheers, me beers. What have we eaten today, Derp? I think we've had some seeds and some nuts, haven't we? Sunflower seeds. So anyway. Slange. Isle of Axelholm. The Dead Moon. Before the isle was drained in the 17th century, it was full of pools of black water and squelching wetlands. Many marsh people met with watery graves on moonless nights when they could not see the paths clearly, and stories grew that they were lured to their fate by all the things which lived in the darkness, doing evil things to those who were not safely beside their firesides. Will-o'-the-wisps, bogles, dead things, witches, and crawling horrors, or reform MPs as they're known. A legend of this time concerns the moon, who got to hear about these evils on the wetlands when her back was turned and the nights were darkest. At the month end, the story goes, she came to earth in a black cloak with a hood pulled over her yellow shining hair. She went to the bog edge and looked about her, and then walked right into the middle of the bog. And what a sight met her eyes! Witches rode past on great broomsticks. The evil eye glowered from the darkest corners, and the will-o'-the-wisps danced about with their lanterns swinging on their backs. Then the dead folk rose in the water, their slimy dead hands beckoning and pointing to the deep pools. The moon trembled and drew her cloak fast about her, but was determined to see everything. Just as she came upon a big black pool, her foot slipped. She managed to grab with both hands at a snag nearby, but it wound itself around her hands and gripped her so that she could not move. As she pulled and twisted to free herself, she heard a voice which repeatedly called, then died away with a sob, until the marshes were full of the pitying, crying sound. Then she heard footsteps floundering along, and finally a terrified white face. It was a man who had strayed into the bogs, and round about him the grinning bogles and the dead folk and the creeping horrors crawled and cried, their voices mocking him, and the dead hands plucking him. And ahead, the will-o'-the-wisps dangled their lanterns and shook with evil glee as they led him further and further from the safe track. Half crazy with fear, he struggled on towards the flickering lights which looked like help and safety. When the moon saw that the man was coming nearer and nearer to the deep holes and straying further and further from the path, she struggled and pulled again at the snag which held her fast. All the twisting pulled the black hood from her shining hair, and its radiance shone in the darkness and drove the evil things back into their dark corners. Rejoicing at his escape, the traveller fled from the boglands as fast as he could to the safety of the path. But the moon was still imprisoned and needed help herself. Her head dropped with sadness, and the hood once more covered her light. Back came the darkness, and with it the evil things which crowded and mocked her, shrieking with rage and spite, swearing, spitting, and snarling. Goodness me, it is a reform meeting. Now that she was in their power, the creatures fought and squabbled all the rest of the night over what they should do with her. Then the dawn light streaked across the sky. They knew they had to act quickly, and so they pushed her deep in the water at the foot of the snag. The dead folk held her down while the Bogles found a big stone and rolled it on top of her to keep her from rising. Days went by. It was time for the new moon, but the moon did not shine. One night, when the men were talking in the inn about the lost moon, a stranger from the far end of the boglands heard their conversation. He told them of his ordeal in the bog and how the miraculous light drove away the evil things and showed him the right track across the marshes. He told them it came from something standing in a black snag in the water. He recalled seeing a shining face and yellow hair like the moon herself about the marshes at night. They consulted the local wise woman, who told them to search that night for a place in the bog where they would find a coffin, a candle, and a cross, and there they would find the moon. So, as dusk fell, they set out together along the dark paths to the middle of the bogs, searching all the time for the coffin, the candle, and the cross, until at last they came by the pool by the side of the great snag. There was the huge stone, half in and half out of the water, looking like a strange big coffin. At its head, the snag stretched its two arms in a dark, gruesome cross, and on it, light flickered like a tiny candle. The men knelt down in the wet, crossed themselves, and silently recited the Lord's Prayer, first forwards because of the cross, and then backwards to keep off the Bogles. When this was accomplished, the stone was removed, and for one moment the men saw a strange and beautiful face looking up out of the black water before its brilliance dazzled them. As soon as the marsh men had regained their sight, the moon was back in the sky, illuminating the darkness once more. From that time, it is said, the moon shone even more brightly over the wetlands, for she had experienced herself the horrors of the darkness. It's quite ironic that this is Ghosts and Legends of Lincolnshire and the Fen Country, and it mentions the darkness because they're from that part of the world. Well, they're from East Anglia, but we're in the ballpark. What do you reckon, Dirk? What are we up to? 26 minutes. I think we'll have another couple, and then it'll be half time, snacks, and then we're closer to supper. So, oh, lovely. Cheers. Oh, we've got some fan mail. Let's just read the fan mail. Uh-oh. Missed a call from friend Judith. as in reading them, comma, not. Bear with. I'll call after show. That's not how you spell show, JM. What are we up to? 27 minutes, right. Leverington, a devilish whirling. One day, a widow was baking cakes to celebrate Mid-Lent or Mothering Sunday. She was removing a batch from the oven when the devil appeared in a whirlwind which blew through her kitchen door. He snatched her up in his arms, and together they flew right over the church, to the horror of the villagers who stood watching helplessly below. The woman was never seen again, but her memory lived for many years, and in 1889, the rector of Leverington recorded that Mid-Lent Sunday was still known in his village as Whirling Sunday. Some of his elderly parishioners could still dimly remember when a pleasure fair was held at Leverington to commemorate that day, which was a general holiday with sports, games, and boxing matches. One or two villagers were still making small cakes known as whirling cakes in memory of the legend of the old woman being whirled over St. Leonard's steeple. I might wait this out. Actually, I'm just going to check the fan mail again. I think we are going to make it to the half-hour mark. Right. Right, half time. There we go. No, we're up 29 minutes. We're not even half time yet. Goodness me. Right. Lincoln. Oh, beer and a bump. Slange bar. Slange. Lincoln, the devil, the imp, and the east wind. Lincoln Cathedral is said to be one of the finest medieval buildings in Europe. Upon completion, the monks, any of them called Harry, let's find out, believed the devil could not resist being malicious to such a wonderful place of worship, and that he viewed it with a sour and evil expression, hence the adage, he looks as the devil over Lincoln. Its exposed situation and rather dissolute life of some of the clergy centuries ago gave rise to the following legend. The devil became friendly with the wind, and they went together to the cathedral. Satan told his companion to wait outside whilst he went in to have a chat with the dean and chapter. The wind agreed and has been waiting ever since, and one presumes the devil has found a lot to discuss with the dean and chapter. His intimate alliance with the wind suggests that he has taken the place of Odin, a heathen prince of the powers of the air, greatly honoured by the Vikings who settled in eastern England. The famous Lincolnshire imp is one of many devils to be found in the cathedral and sits at the cleft of a pillar adjacent to the east window above the angel choir. The following is a popular tale concerning its presence. Once a strong wind brought two imps to see the newly built cathedral at Lincoln. The first, who was curious to see what such a holy place had to offer, slipped in unannounced and was so amazed at what it saw and heard that its heart turned to stone and the creature became rooted to the ground. The other imp went looking for its brother and unwittingly alighted on the shoulders of a witch who flew around the ceiling and deposited the imp, which she turned to stone, on its now well-known perch. The wind, which always seems to be blowing, still haunts the Minster. Sorry, the wind, which always seems to be blowing, still haunts the Minster precincts, waiting for the return of the imps. Right, we are at half time now, Derps. I got some fan mail here. Okay, early evening. Let me know when you free. Right, snack time, Derp, because wheat is Gert hungry. What are we on? We're on the Thai chili rice snacks from Lidl. These are gorgeous, by the way. Do you know what? I think we'll finish off the last of our Christmas gin, quite frankly. Well, I found another bottle of it downstairs, so and the second beer tonight is St. Pierre, St. Peter's Abbey, Abbey St. Pierre, Belgian Abbey beer, blonde with an E on the end, beer, 6%. And that's all it says. So what do we get up to today? Well, like I say, I was prepping for another web show this evening, got carried away in the afternoon, meant to do some gardening, although tell a lie, I did do some gardening this afternoon. I did pull up some herb Robert, which grows all over the garden. It's a pity because I do like it as a plant, but it can be quite invasive. So pulled up the herb Robert, watered my plants. I think tomorrow, fingers crossed, going to do some allotment time with friend Laura, and then hoping to see my friend Andy later in the afternoon. So oh yeah, and do some work, obs. Although I have worked over the weekend, so what did you do on Sunday? I tuned in to watch Sunday Night Ghost Stories, but watched a confused man from Dudley with holes in his head eat bloody Thai rice snacks, for goodness sake. Oh, that definitely sounds like Sunday Night Ghost Stories. It does. Oh. So, yeah, so hopefully doing some allotment work with friend Laura tomorrow, and then some garden centres, and then meeting up with friend Andy a bit later on. So as for the rest of tonight, we're going to have some, when we finish doing this show, we're going to have some supper and watch some, what are we going to watch, Derp? We'll watch some goddamn Family Guy, won't we? You coming up here? Hey, coming up. Come on. Come on. Or are you too addicted to the fact that the heater's on? You are, actually. So that's pretty much the plan for tomorrow. Let's try and get out on the bike as well, so I can see a flashing light outside. I think it's a police car going down the M5. I don't know whether I shared this story with you on Friday. I'm sure I did. But if I didn't, I'll share it with you again. It's all right. Bear with, folks. Just doing a bit of social media nonsense. Right. So let me just call up the Facebook feed from Friday. So what happened on Friday was Derpzoid here was sat on the windowsill, looking out over the flat roof here, and I decided that for his entertainment, I would chuck some birdseed out on the flat roof so that he could watch the dicky birds. Because you like watching the dicky birds, don't you, Derp? I've got the beer burps coming up at 38 minutes and 30 seconds. There we go. Perfect. I do apologize you had to witness that. So again, we probably told this story on Friday. So I open the window to chuck some bird food out, and Stupid here decides that he'll jump down and go onto the flat roof. So there he is on the flat roof. I've got to say, when I see photographs of it, the view is incredible. I have to pinch myself that, yeah, I've got that view from up here in the library. So I'm tempted to move the office up here sometimes, but I don't know. I'll have a think about it. But yeah, so what a view. So he decided to wander around the flat roof and then looked at me and realized that because of his age, he couldn't jump up back into the window again. So I go and get the old chair that's in the library here and put it out on the flat roof so that he can jump up on the chair and then jump up onto the windowsill. No, he plays dumb. He's just like, no, I don't understand this concept. Two-tiered travel. So I go downstairs and get him some Licky Licks. He's as deaf as a post. I go downstairs and get him some Licky Licks. Get out, get that. And as I'm heading back up the stairs, who do I pass? Coming down the stairs, but that little black and white rat bag, who had obviously figured out that, yeah, actually I can just jump up on the chair and come back in, and I will troll him by coming back down the stairs. So that pretty much sums up our relationship. Essentially, I was going to say he's a cat that's found an owner. I'm a human being. I'm a human being who's found a feline owner. So that was good fun. So let's have some more of these wasabi snacks, Derp. Goodness me, we are going to be buying some more of them from Lidl. So right, let's crack on, shall we? We have a full pint of beer to devour in 20 minutes. And we have my my sloe and blackberry gin to consume as well. So, Little St. Hugh. Chaucer developed Little St. Hugh as one of his Canterbury tales, and the original story was probably a popular piece of anti-Semitic propaganda. I think it should be anti-Semitic propaganda. Chaucer developed Little St. Hugh as one of his Canterbury tales, and the original story was probably a popular piece of anti-Semitic propaganda which circulated at the time when Edward I expelled the Jews from England in 1290. Halfway down the south aisle of Lincoln Cathedral the remains of the shrine of Little St. Hugh, said to have been murdered in 1255, which is almost 1 o'clock. At that time, and in common with many other cities, Lincoln had a large and prosperous Jewish community, which was blamed for the boy's death and subsequent communal revenge. The 8-year-old boy was alleged to have been murdered by a Jew named Copin, who lived at the foot of Steep Hill, Lincoln, whose daughter enticed the little boy over the wall and into their garden with the promise of an apple. He was seized and brought before a mock jury, then later tortured, crucified, and murdered. When the boy failed to return home, his mother sent out a search party, which discovered his body at the bottom of a well belonging to a Jew's house. The King's Justiciary, John de Lexington, was in Lincoln at the time of the crime and ordered Copin to be seized and questioned. On a pardon for his life, he is said to have confessed to the murder and explained that the child had been put to death in front of a great many Jews who had gathered at Lincoln for the occasion to avenge the crucifixion of Christ. One of their number elected to represent Pilate and ordered the punishment and eventual execution of the boy. The prisoner also admitted that it was the custom of the Jews to sacrifice a Christian child in this fashion every year, which was a popular story of that time. Copin's life was not pardoned, and he was later tied to a horse's tail and dragged to Canwick Hill, where he was hanged with 18 rich Jews, whilst many more were imprisoned at Lincoln. What a grim story. Oh, that's religion for you, folks. I think we'll have I think we'll finish off the Thai chili rice snacks. Oh, derp, that's the end of those. Thank you, Saint Pierre. Oh, that's lovely. Cheers, me beers. In the magnificent United Federation of Planet shot glass, again, courtesy of viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States. Slangs me bar. In fact, that's just reminded me to look something up. Would you believe? Let me just look. I'm just looking up something. I'm looking up an old college chum. No, that's not them. Old college chum that I've not seen in the best part of nearly 20 years. Bear with. I know this is very rude of me to suddenly go off tangent, but No, that's not. That's not what. No, no. It's. I was looking up somebody and I can't. I can't find them. But never mind. Never mind. It's not important. What is important is the ghost stories. Lindsay Yallery Brown. The folklorist who collected this tale from the wetlands at the end of the last century said it was told by an old man called Tom, who blamed his disappearing life on a small creature whom he released from under a stone when he was 16 years old. The thing was neither boggart nor bogle, but gave him no peace in this lifetime and probably none in the next. On summer evenings, Tom used to enjoy walking along the path, which went out to the broad, silent fields and beside the supposedly haunted spinney with its myriad fairy stones and rings. One dark night in July, he heard a terrible sobbing and thought someone had left their baby in the long grass. He searched over a wide area in vain, and the crying grew louder. Then he heard a voice whimpering, "Oh, the stone, the great big stone on top." He eventually found a great flat slab hidden under a tangle of weeds, almost covered with earth. It was the type which the March people called strangers' tables, where the strangers or tiddy people danced on midnight on moonlit nights. The voice called up again, but Tom feared the strangers and was scared to move the stone. However, the sound was so plaintive that he gave in, and there was a little creature lying on its back, no bigger than a 1-year-old baby, its ancient face peering out of long, tangled, yellowed hair, its skin the colour of freshly dug earth, and its beard twisted all round its body. The creature was yellow and brown all over and said its name was Yallery Brown. The lad asked if it were a bogle and was told he should not ask, but whatever it was, it would always be his friend. Yallery Brown offered to grant Tom a wish, and being work shy, the boy asked for a helping hand and thanked him. The creature replied angrily that it was never to be thanked and stamped its feet with rage. When it calmed down, it told its saviour that if he ever needed help or got into trouble, he had only to call, "Yallery Brown, come from the ground, I want you," and he would come immediately. Then he vanished. When Tom went to work the next morning, all his work was already done, and he sat happily with his hands in his pockets, doing nothing. Yallery Brown had done it for him and did so every day. But people saw the little creature flitting about at night and noticed brushes and tools working by themselves. Just as Tom's work was done for him, theirs was undone, and they complained to their master. The boy tried to work, but brooms would not stay in his hands, and the ploughs ran away from him. Yallery Brown would not go away, and in the end, Tom was sacked. He was so angry that he shook his fist and shouted, "Yallery Brown from the earth, I want you." The little creature appeared and was told his help was no longer welcome, and the boy thanked him to leave him alone. The tiny thing gave a nasty laugh and said that as he had been thanked, he would never give his help again. But he had never promised to leave Tom alone, and he never would. He should have left him under the stone where he should have left him under the stone where he could have done no harm. Tom tried his hand at many jobs, but things always went wrong, thanks to Yallery Brown. When he married, his children died. His wife had a harsh tongue and his cattle never fattened. He could never get away from the tiddy thing, and he never would. The creature's song was always ringing in his ears. Work as thou will, thou never do well. Woke as thou wot, thou never gain out. For harm and mischief and yallery brown, thou's let out thyself from under thou stone. Goodness me. You enjoying yourself down there, Derp? I think you are. What are we up to? 53 minutes. Right, let's get this beer down us. Then we can have some supper. And then we can watch some Family Guy. And then we can fall asleep. So, oh, lovely. Slange. Oh, lovely. Long Sutton. Dick Turpin, the highwayman. Turpin's crimes committed whilst living at Long Sutton played a vital role in his eventual execution at York in 1738, which is almost 20 to 6. He was born in 1706 at Hampstead near Saffron Walden, where he worked as a butcher and was always under suspicion with his dubious meat dealings. When the law was about to book him, he moved to Cambridge, where he stayed for a time at the 3 Tons in Castle Street. The excise men were soon looking for him, but he managed to slip away and settle at Long Sutton in 1737, first at the Bull Hotel in the marketplace, and later in a rented cottage close to the post office in the High Street. He passed himself off as a horse dealer called Palmer, but his mother's maiden name and his stock was mostly that which he had stolen for himself. Eventually, Mr. Delamere, the local magistrate, issued a warrant for his arrest on the charge of sheep stealing, but Turpin, alias Palmer, knocked the arresting officer to the ground and escaped to Yorkshire, where Black Bess, his famous horse, died en route. In October 1738, he was staying at the Cock Inn in Welton and was caught shooting a gamecock belonging to his landlord. Still known as Palmer, he was arrested and taken before the magistrate who ordered him to find sureties for his good behaviour. But being unable to comply, he was sent to the House of Correction. At Beverley, and for the first time in his life, Turpin was behind bars. Mr. Cowell, the magistrate, became suspicious of his prisoner and delved further into his past life. Palmer insisted that he was a butcher by trade, and he and his family had lived in Long Sutton, but bad debts had forced him to move north. A letter of inquiry was sent by special messenger addressed to Mr. Delamere, the Long Sutton magistrate, who replied that John Palmer was accused of sheep stealing, but had escaped, and since that time, information had been received concerning his horse stealing activities. Delamere further stated that Palmer's whereabouts before his stay at Long Sutton were unknown, and none of his family had resided in this South Lincolnshire town. The prisoner was moved to York Castle, where every effort was made to discover his past history, and there was soon sufficient evidence to commit him to trial. Many witnesses came forward for the prosecution, and then Turpin made the big mistake of writing a letter to his father. Turpin Sr. was in Chelmsford Prison, and his letter was returned to the Essex Post Office with the postage unpaid. The woman who had taught Dick to read and write happened to see it, recognized his writing, and revealed his true identity. Sufficient evidence was found to hang Dick Turpin, who was executed at York on April the 2nd, 1738, aged 32, and buried in St. George's Churchyard. Do you know what? We're going to look up, Derps, we're going to look up Dick Turpin's grave. Cheers, me beard. Slange. So here we go. Change screen. Dick Turpin's grave. Oh my goodness me, ladies and gentlemen. We've only gone and found it, haven't we? Wow. Share screen. Here we go. So, John Palmer, otherwise Richard Turpin, the notorious highwayman and horse stealer, executed at Tyburn, April the 7th, 1739, and buried in St. George's Churchyard. Oh, the beer burps again. Do apologise. Although it does say here, sufficient evidence was found to hang Dick Turpin, who was executed at York on April the 2nd, 1738, aged 32, and buried in St. George's Churchyard. And yet the date there is over a year later. So, do you know what? No, he was executed at Tyburn, April the 7th, 1739. But it's saying here he was executed at York on April the 2nd, 1738. So there's some discrepancy going on here, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, hang about. Let's add to stage. There we go. That's what you should have been looking at. Yeah. So it's saying executed at Tyburn, April the 7th, 1739. But the book is saying executed at York on April the 2nd, 1738. I'm going to look it up on Wikipedia. So here we go. 7th of April, 1739. So it would appear the book is wrong. Bizarre that they'd say, here is a reference to his grave. Okay, but we're going to get the date horribly wrong. Huh? I don't get that, Derp. Do you? No, Derp doesn't get it either. He's actually, Derp, look at this, look. Sprawled out in front of the fire. Goodness me. Right, what are we up to now? I think we'll do it more, then we're going downstairs and having some supper and some family, guys. So, Luth, how 6 Pint Smith changed his name. The legendary John Smith is said to have lived in Luth in the mid-19th century. Each day he went to his favourite pub at noon and drank the 12 half pints of beer set on his table before the church clock had finished chiming. This earned him the nickname 6 Pint Smith until he increased it by another 4. At the time of the annual fair, he wanted to buy some goods from a peddler, but having insufficient money, suggested that they should have a beer drinking contest with the winner taking all the stock. Being another robust drinker, the peddler agreed to the wager, and 6 Pint drank his first pint before the merchant had lifted his glass. Not to be outdone, the peddler took a pint in each hand and drained first one and then the other without wiping his mouth. All the time he matched his 2 for Smith's 1, and eventually, after gulping 8 pints in a very short time, the man from Luth admitted defeat. However, The pedlar replied that if Smith would care to climb Luth steeple, he would receive not only all his stock, but also the money which he jingled in his purse. 6 pints drank, another 2 for Dutch courage, and with 10 pints of beer under his belt, made the perilous ascent of the church steeple. Back on firm ground, he looked round for the pedlar and his winnings, but the scoundrel had run off, taking Smith's overcoat with him. The angry man cursed him and then remembered he had left his hat on top of the steeple and set off to retrieve it. But some soldiers took pot shots at it, and the ruined article was left to decorate the church. This daring wager elevated Smith's name to 10 Pint Smith, and he lived up to his reputation. Last, I don't know if we're going to do last for tonight or deux for tonight. I think we'll do last deux for tonight. So, slange me, Bob. Cheers. Although we are going to have some more of the Arbracken. Pop. Oh my goodness me, derps. We're going to sleep well tonight. Right. Legend has it, it all started with the Arbracken, a mythical beast who roamed the highlands and stalked the lowlands, burning the Scottish bogland with its ferocious, fiery breath. The smouldering aftermath left the villagers wanting the Arbracken's head until they realised the beast had transformed the local whiskey with a flavour so rich and smoky it changed the way whiskey was made and drunk forever. 41%. Goodness me. Marvellous stuff, though. Right, last deux for tonight. Mania, the Viking ship. The Vikings found the east coast of England an easy target for their forays across the North Sea. Mania is a very isolated village which lies close to the 100-foot washes, and it was here that Charles I intended to build his new kingdom of Charlemont after the drainage of the fens, but was beheaded before his plans were finished. An old man who died in 1875 told his friend of an occasion in his youth when he was picking flowers out of Darcy Lode, and 2 things rose up and scared him almost to death. An old man who died in 1875 told his friend of an occasion in his youth when he was picking flowers out of Darcy Lode, and 2 things rose up and scared him almost to death. He thought they were serpents, but upon closer inspection, they looked like the stern. He thought they were serpents, but upon closer investigation, they looked like the stem and stern of a big boat or even a small ship. His grandfather had laughed when he described how the things had risen up, and the old man explained that they were in their proper place and the fens were sinking. The pieces of wood were taken home, broken up, dried out, and used for kindling throughout the next winter. With hindsight, the narrator thought the boat looked like those used by the foreigners who used to sail about these parts. Who knows? Perhaps the Harris family had burned the remains of a Viking longboat. Right, last one for tonight, derps. He is absolutely stretched out here in front of the fire. I don't know if you can see him, but oh, sorry, I didn't move my foot. Actually, I'm going to take a picture of him sprawled out in front of the fire. Slange me, pal. Cheers, Reg, for the R Bracken. Right, last one for tonight. March. The Devil and the Men of March. The base of an old stone cross, which was probably a preaching cross, stands at the junction of the High Street and the Causeway, where, according to legend, it is said to mark the spot where a church was to be built. Each time a little progress was made, unaccountable disaster struck, and soon it was rumoured to be the devil's work, as he resented a house of God being placed in March. We've heard this story. It's attributed to Somerset, Devon, Cornwall. Anyway, despite the gossip, building continued on and off for several years, but with so many mishaps that it was eventually agreed to stop work. However, being true Fenmen, the Men of March, as some still like to be called, refused to be beaten. A stone crucifix was placed close to the site, the remains of which stand to this day as an object of terror to the devil, who was never seen again. In time, a place of worship was successfully completed. This could have been the site of the beautiful 14th century church. This could have been the site of the beautiful 14th century church dedicated to St. Wendreda, located about a mile north of the cross, which, until 1855, which is 5 minutes to 7, came within the parish of Doddington. The building is believed to stand on the site of at least two previous churches, which formed the centre of the early Saxon settlement of March. St. Wendreda's has a double hammer beam angel roof, reputed to be the finest example of its type in England. The heavenly creatures are so wonderful that I sometimes wait for them to ruffle their wings and whisper, "Well done," to the Men of March, who cocked a snook at the devil. Oh, the beer burps again. Double hammer beam angel roof. We're going to have to look that up. Double hammer beam. Right. A double hammer beam angel roof is a highly sophisticated, predominantly 15th century East Anglian timber roof structure. Let's see if we can find a picture of it. Oh, my goodness me. Right, here we go. Right, I think we found an example of it. Core, blimey, governor. So, no, let's get rid of that. That's not the one we want. This is the one we want. Share screen. So apparently, excuse me, I've got the beer burps again. That is a double hammer beam angel roof. St. Wendreda's. That might actually be St. Wendreda's. Let's try it. Let's add that to. There we go. So that's what we're looking at. So let me see if I can find St. Wendreda's. St. Wendry. There we go. Saint Wendrida's hammer beam. Oh my goodness me. All right, here we go, folks. Brace yourselves. So I'm just waiting for the screen to close down here. So this is what we were talking about, Saint Wendrida's. So there it is. Oh my goodness me, that is quite incroyable. Cheers, me biz. Cheers, Saint Wendrida. Oh, lovely. Oh, slange. Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are. Oh, let's try it again. Add to stay. There we go. Saint Wendrida's. That's what we were looking for. So that's what we were talking about. And incroyable, everybody. Incroyable. So that'll do for tonight. Thank you very much. We are going to go downstairs and have some supper and watch some goddamn cartoons. I've got to admit, I was watching an episode of Family Guy last night. Couldn't remember seeing it before, and I don't think it's a new one. So anyway, that's it for tonight, derps. There he is downstairs. There he is down there, stretched out in front of the fire. Fingers crossed, we will be back for Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra on a Wednesday. Until then, it behoves me to say thank you for watching. Why? Why not? Until the next time, stay safe, stay out of trouble, and please don't have nightmares. Good night.